We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Ave Maria Stella Dei Mater Alma Atque semper Virgo Felix Telipor.
Everybody, Steve with Sense Fidelity coming at you with an old pal of mine, Dr. Paul Kengor, author of the book The Devil and Karl Marx, and he decided to keep the devil in a new one, The Devil and Bella Dodd. You may have heard of her a couple times because people like quoting her. So, Paul, Dr. Kengor, how you doing? Good to see you, bud. How you been?
Good to see you, bud. Yeah, call me Paul. You don't have to call me Dr. Kengor. That nonsense. No, good to be with you. In fact, I had one of my T-shirts that you got me, the Vendee one.
Yes.
I was going to wear it. I should have probably, but instead I've got this kind of goofy looking flannel shirt on because it's so cold here in Western PA today.
It is quite nippy. Global warming has kicked in. Oh wait, that's a different topic.
That's right. That's right. Could use a little global warming here right now.
Yes, I think of the South Park episode when he's spraying cans down the wall in the air trying to kill the ozone layer. So, the Bella Dodd, why did you write? Why is there a book on Bella? We hear about her talking about everyone, their brother quotes her. No one has any information on her. Mm-hmm. She's in the School of Darkness is their autobiography. The famous quote's not in there. What prompted this to come out? I mean, I like the idea when I was reading it going with the Holy Face message, the Holy Face devotion, the book Tan's put out, we've been harping on Shang Shu's, the idea of know your enemy. This is a great know your enemy book.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good point. In fact, that's a good line. I'm going to start using that, right? It is. It's a great know your enemy book. But the way that it started, Steve, so I got to give credit to my co-author, Mary Nicholas. It really began with her. And she had a manuscript that she's been working on for years. I mean, at least 10 years. She's an MD, right? Medical doctor from Maine. And she'd never done a book before, never published a book. And she came to me several years ago and asked me if I would jump in as a co-author with her. And I'll be very frank in this interview, but I said, no, I can't do that. I said, I would really have to, write half of it myself. And she said, I don't mind sharing the credit. I need someone to help me get this done and finish it off and polish it off. I said, no, and besides, I don't have time. And I said, but I'll do whatever I can to help you get it published. And I suggested it to people, a number of different places turned it down. And then when I talked to Tan about it, and Tan said, you step in as the co-author, and I became kind of editor as well as co-author, and spent a lot of time on it. So by the end, Steve, I thought, okay, I'm definitely co-author. I feel okay about this now. And Mary, to her credit, she realized she's not a historian. She'd never written a book before, and so she needed a co-author. And together we put this together. It's about I think it's a little over 400 pages altogether. And man, how many footnotes? I think there's over 1,000 footnotes as well in this baby. Oh man,
1,000 is the number of the day, really, right?
Yeah, 1,080. Yeah, 1,080 footnotes. So it is, but up to that point, this really remarkable woman, Bella Dodd, born 1904 in Pacerno, Italy, died in 1969, April 1969 in New York City. And the only book about her was her memoir, School of Darkness, which is a really good memoir. And that had been published early 1950s. No one ever did a biography of her, which is stunning. It's really hard to believe. So Mary Nicholas was on this, and I would tell people, I've said, you need to publish a biography of Bella Dodd. This is a great story. And one of the things I wanted to do too, Steve, was clarify in this book for people and for my own mind, what exactly this woman said about penetrating Catholic seminaries, infiltrating Catholic seminaries. So we hope to do a service simply by clarifying what she said and going through all the muck on the internet, including by people on our side who we agree with and who like Bella Dodd and hate communism, but would throw kind of sloppy stuff up there that's not documented. So we very meticulously went through what she did say and what she didn't say and what can be documented and what can't be documented.
Yeah, that's a perfect point, because even like you talk about the Great Reset, I've been pounding away for that for the last couple of years, and everyone says Klaus Schwab said you owe nothing to be happy. No, that was some lady that wrote an article, and there's a TED Talk that says all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, right. Being precise is needed for Team Truth. We need to say what we have to provide the evidence, not just make things up because it sounds good. We got to be better than the enemy is. So right. Yeah, no, that's great that you're doing that. Yeah, everyone talks about the famous phrase. I put 1,200 people in the seminar.
Yeah, and you could watch, Steve. You could go to different memes on the internet. You could go to videos on YouTube where you will hear Bella's voice talking, and usually it is her voice. It's very distinctive. New York, Italian. And she's giving a speech maybe in Detroit or Omaha or somewhere else, and then it pauses, and then on the screen appears these words, right? I put over, and it's like, wait, where's the audio? Yeah. Where's the audio? and then it will say, School of Darkness. No, it's not in School of Darkness. Maybe it will say testimony before U.S. Senate, June 26, 1953. I go there. No, it's not in there. But that said, she did say it. She did say it. Mm-hmm. She clearly seems to have said it to Fulton Sheen, who became her confessor, her spiritual advisor, her spiritual mentor. And we were told Mary interviewed Alice von Hildebrand. Bella Dodd told it to Hildebrand. She told it to Dietrich von Hildebrand. Also, who heard her say this, Paul and Janine Leininger, who heard her say it at a talk in California in the 60s. We actually got them in a sworn affidavit. Our friend Kevin Simmons made that happen. He actually got it on record, got it notarized. And in fact, Kevin connected us to another person who's still living. In fact, Janine died while we were working on this book. She died, I think, in June, which is really sad. She would have loved to have seen this book. But he got us in touch with Sherry Finn and had dinner with Bella Dodd near Plano, Texas in the 1960s. And she told them about it. She didn't, part of the problem is she didn't explain to people how she went about doing this, at least what we know of. Mm-hmm. But she did say to these people that place 1,000 or over 1,000 communist men in Catholic seminaries, or at least she helped recruit them and attempted to do that. Exactly how far it went, whatever happened to these individuals, we don't know. And we're very careful about, again, what we can say and we can't say. But that's what she did. And people should not be surprised by this, because there are numerous people who testified before Congress. We quote them in this book. Steve, you and I talked about it in my book, The Devil and Karl Marx. Herb Philbrick, Manning Johnson, Ben Gitlow, the second highest ranking person in Communist Party USA, Louis Boudin's, another Sheen convert who was the editor of the Daily Worker. In fact, Sheen brought him into the church while Louis Boudin's name as editor was still on the masthead of the Daily Worker. They all testified to Congress about how communists were infiltrating the church, and especially the mainline denominations. And communists themselves said that they did that. So, of course, they tried to do it with the Catholics. What's unique about Bella Dodd is here was somebody, a high-level party figure, really one of the highest-ranking women in the party ever, in the American party ever, who came forward and said that she helped recruit over 1,000 communist men into Catholic seminaries. So we should not be surprised by this. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. I'm probably getting to some of your questions. Let me say one more thing before I forget.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. One of the reasons that Bella Dodd was tasked with doing this, or would have been tasked with doing this. She was a master organizer. She was given the education front for the party. She was a teacher. She taught at Hunter College in New York City, and she placed roughly 1,000 teachers in the teachers union in the state of New York. And she testified to that under oath to Congress. She gave specific data, actual numbers. And she said out of 10,000 members of the teachers union, she placed 1,000 communist teachers. And she also organized the Longshore Seamen, whatever, wait, can I get that right? Other groups, other different unions. So this is what she did. So it's no surprise that the party would have gone to her to organize priests, or to try to organize priests, or to try to infiltrate seminaries.
That's what I love about you. You were reading my mind. That was the question. That was what I was going to bring up. Why did they pick Bella? Yeah, I think she writes that in School of Darkness, right? About the numbers in the teachers union. And
yeah, she's very specific about it. And now this is very important. She says nothing in School of Darkness about infiltrating seminaries. And here people are going to ask, okay, well, why? Well, according to Alice von Hildebrand, who told us this, she told Mary Nicholas. Alice died in, I think it was January 2022. She was 98 years old. And Alice said this repeatedly on video. In fact, Michael Voris of Church Militant interviewed her, and you can find that on YouTube where she says this. She wrote it in Crisis Magazine. She wrote it in her memoirs. She said a bunch of times that Bella Dodd said that Fulton Sheen asked her not to name names and to keep this quiet, which is why she didn't talk about it in public speeches. She didn't write about it publicly. And she told Sheen, she said, I should go into the most penitential order on the planet and spend the rest of my life pleading for forgiveness and making reparation for what I did. And Sheen said, no, don't do that. Here's what I think you should do. You should instead go out and tell the world about the dangers of communism, which is what Pope Pius XI told Sheen to do in the 1930s. And so Bella Dodd went out and did exactly that, testifying, giving speeches everywhere. But she did not want to, or Sheen did not want her to divulge any names or talk about what she did, because it would cause scandal in the church.
Yeah, could you guys bring up the conversation between Dietrich and Alice and her? I mean, Dietrich's going, give me the names. I got somebody in there.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And in fact, Alice said that Dietrich kind of leaned forward, almost leapt up in his seat. Yeah. And he said, I have this feeling that the church has been infiltrated. And she said, you feel it? I know it. That's what Bella Dodd said. And he said, what are you talking about? And that's when she explained what she had done. But those are in private conversations. Mm-hmm. And so here again, the cynic might say, well, Sheen told her not to tell anyone. Well, yeah, but she's human. And we had certain cases where she did seem to tell some people. And she did seem to say it at one time in a public speech in Orange County, California in the 1960s, because that's where Janine and Paul Leininger heard her say it. And I'll issue this request right now on your show here, Steve. If anybody watching this was there and heard her say this, or had another occasion like Sherry Finn, who's 82 years old, still alive, her and her husband had dinner with Bella in the 60s and heard her say it, please get in touch with me, because it will add you to the list of witnesses. And I think the more that we can affirm that Bella Dodd at least said this, we can at least document that she did say it and attempted to do it. Now, what happened after that, that's another issue altogether. But it's I think at least it's a good enough thing to document that she actually said it.
Like you bring up, she was careful because she was a lawyer. What wasn't she? She knew that if she said it, she could get sued.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She could get sued. And I'm flipping through here. Can I get this quick enough? Oh, good. I got it. Good. I found it. She was among the people that she seemed to have clearly told. All right. So she was baptized by Fulton Sheen on April 7th, 1952. Okay. He heard her confession on that day. That's after a year of Sheen giving her instruction to come into the church. All right. Now, this can't be a coincidence. 3 weeks after that, right after this, Sheen went to Rome. He went to Italy. I don't know if he took a boat. I don't know if he took a plane. If he took a boat, it probably took a couple weeks to get there. But on the front page of the New York Times on April 28, 1952, now he baptized her and heard her confession on April 7th. All right, this appears on the front page of the New York Times, April 28, 1952. The headline, Sheen in Rome says red agents tried to infiltrate the priesthood. Now, I'll pause right there. People watching, do you believe Fulton Sheen? And the article reported, American communists, according to Sheen, were under secret orders in 1936 to infiltrate the Roman Catholic priesthood. Bishop Fulton J. Sheen said today. The 57-year-old auxiliary bishop of New York spoke to an overflowing congregation in the American Catholic Church of Santa Susanna, St. Susanna in Rome. Said Sheen, quote, this was the beginning of the planning of forces of evil communism within the religious communities to destroy them from within. And then Sheen said this, and Steve, where would Sheen have gotten this but from Bella Dodd?
Yeah.
A call for volunteers to enter religious orders and make the great sacrifices of the life of a seminarian was made at a secret red meeting in a large American city. That's New York. I mean, he's clearly getting that from Bella Dodd. Clearly getting it from Bella Dodd. Now, I don't know if he got it from her in the confessional for the first time. Then she probably had told him prior to that, frankly. And that, as far as we've been able to find, is the only instance where Sheen ever said that publicly. And maybe after that speech, maybe after that appeared, someone else in the church said to Sheen, hey, we need to not talk about this and go out and go after communism and attack it. Like Divini Redemptoris said, the 1937 encyclical, call it a satanic scourge. Bella described it as the devil, right? Fighting against the devil. Go after it, take it down, but let's try to protect the church here and be careful about what we say.
And one of her quotes was talking about if the devil be my companion, I will go to him wherever he goes. And all that stuff you write about, I guess you got it from all the FOIAs you asked for leading up to the conversion story, which she made the conversion story that much a great read, if you want to say. Just the heartwarming beauty of it was you had to build that up to get to the Sheen conversion. Yeah.
In fact, I just got the hard copy of the book last week, and before I clicked the link here to do the show today, I went back and I read the chapter on Sheen. It's the next to the last chapter in the book, just to kind of refresh my memory and some of the details. And I got choked up reading it, and just the way that he handled her she's going to DC, she's being monitored by the FBI and the KGB. She runs into Congressman Christopher McGrath, an old friend from New York who represented her district. And she goes to his office and he says, Bella, isn't there anything I can do for you? Can I help you? And she said, no, there's really nothing I can do. And then it hit him. He said, would you like to see a priest? And she said, it jumped out of her. She said, yes. And so he had his secretary said, let's see if we can get Monsignor Sheen from Catholic University. So they called over, his secretary called over, and Sheen said, come on over to my house tonight. And so she goes there, and he walks in, and he's wearing the cross that he wore on TV. She said, just like on TV, right? Exactly like TV. Walked into the room, immediately puts her at ease, and says, he says, us priests are like doctors. Sometimes we can recognize what's wrong with a patient just by looking at it.
Yeah. That was a great line.
Yeah. And she starts to cry. And, he puts his hand on her shoulder and says, there, it's okay. And she wrote in School of Darkness, he didn't say to me, you old Bolshevik hag, what are you doing here? And that's how the communists treated her. I mean, they threatened her. They threatened her life. They called her racist. That's what they always do, right? Anti-Semite, anti-Puerto Rican, anti-Negro. These were the words that the Associated Press reporter called. They've been doing this, Steve, for 100 years. All right, that's what they do. It's just right out of the playbook, right?
Yeah.
What do I call my opponent? Oh, racist. Oh, next page, bigot. Anti-Semite, it's what they do, but so he put his hand on her shoulder, and he was all mercy, and she said, before we knew it, there we were, kneeling in front of this statue of the Blessed Mother, and that was the start of her conversion. He ended up giving her instruction in the faith not long after that.
Because you brought up. Is it Boudens? B-U-D-N-Z?
Yeah, Louis Boudens.
Yeah, Louis. And he brings up that you brought him up earlier, so he's another convert. But what he stated to Congress in 22 November.
Yeah,
about
that's a great quote.
Obliterating all religion.
Yeah. Attacking the Catholic Church as part of a plan to obliterate all religion. Yeah. And another quote that's really telling is so that's Louis Boudens, an ex-communist who was the literal editor of the Daily Worker. You could take people like Earl Browder, who was head of Communist Party USA, and I'll quote him in the book, telling seminarians at Union Theological Seminary in New York, which has always been a left-wing Protestant seminary, and he said to them, "You may be surprised to know that we have preachers active in churches who are Communist Party members." And yeah, you ought to be surprised, because you're supposed to be an atheist if you're the Communist Party. It's virtually a requirement for membership in those days. William Z. Foster said that in testimony to Congress. And so why would these Protestant ministers be now? Note Browder didn't say we have preachers who are sympathetic to communism, right? To communism, who agree with us on social justice, right? He said, no, we have actual party members who are current preachers. Well, those guys are infiltrators. That's who they are. So they're going to go, the party's going to go after the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia, every single church, Protestant or Catholic, in Eastern Europe behind the Iron Curtain. It's going to go into the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Episcopal Church, but they're not going to target the Roman Catholic Church? Please. So of course they did. It's just been a matter of that one was harder for them to get and harder to document. But the one person who saw it probably better than anybody else was Bella Dodd.
It's funny you brought up the Russian Orthodox, because there was that part in there where you bring up the Russians saying how they basically got corrupted with the divorce, contraception, abortion, the numbers going up. You bring up how the abortion numbers out there were just astronomical compared to what they are here.
Right.
And get into how basic, Fabian School, the Frankfurt School, and the family. It's the Ingalls book on the family. And Bella had a couple of divorces to go. What she one or two?
Yeah. So they, there was a piece in the Atlantic, roughly the year, and I think 1929, called the communist attempt to abolish the family, or something like that. It was that bad. Of course, in the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels write, quote, "Abolition of the family, !" Even the most radical flare up at this infamous proposal of the communists, unquote. That's verbatim from the Communist Manifesto, which is why our popes and our church and the magisterium read the Communist Manifesto, unlike a lot of modern millennials who say, communism's a pretty good idea. If you just read the book, it talks about sharing the wealth, right? No, read the book. It talks about abolition of the family and all kinds of crazy stuff. But that's what they set out to do in Russia. By the 1970s, in the Soviet Union, according to official Soviet statistics published by the Russian Health Ministry, they were averaging 7 to 8 million abortions per year. 7 to 8 million abortions per year. That's how bad it got. And in the United States, the party was the same way. And Bella Dodd was told not to have children. She says that she was advised by the party not to have children. And Steve, she ached for children. I mean, she could feel it. She wanted children so bad. Whittaker Chambers talks about when his wife got pregnant, they just assumed that you have an abortion. That's just what you do. Alger Hiss's wife, Priscilla, had an abortion, which would I think would have been their only child. And according to Sam Tannenhouse, the New York Times book review editor, wrote the great book on Whittaker Chambers, that just destroyed Priscilla Hiss. It might not only did it hurt her fertility, but emotionally it just wiped her out. So the communists were always hell bent on abortion and breaking up marriages and families. But that's how Bella got the last name Dodd. She married a guy whose last name was Dodd. Her name was Maria Assunta Isabella Visono, which meant Mary, Assumption, Isabella, lovely, beautiful, Assumption of the Blessed Mother. She had this very lovely Catholic Italian name. And, she had this kind of earthly, true utopia bliss where she grew up in Italy. And then she came to New York and just got swallowed up by the public schools and the colleges, which turned her into a fanatic, raving, lying, document shredding, infiltrating communist.
That was another thing it brought up was I didn't know about the lying part. It was almost like reading what's the thing for Islam when they Tahi, what is it? Whatever it is.
Yeah, Taki, right.
Taki or something like that. Yeah, where you have to lie to advance the role. It sounded like that.
Yeah, and they were told, and in fact, I think it's in the chapter in the Rapp Coder hearings that I talk about, or no, I think Herb Philbrick said this under oath to Congress, that they were told that to literally put their hands, communists, on the Bible and say that they believed in God if they had to, right? Just lie. Put your hand on a stack of Bibles and lie, which of course is easy for them to do because they don't believe in the stack of Bibles. Yeah, Lenin said the only morality that we recognize is that which furthers class interests. And that was communism. It is communism.
They hate Fatima. Yeah, I remember you bring that up in the book. I actually saw a tweet today from a Russian Orthodox who basically went after going at the Roman Catholic Church, used Fatima's quote unquote revelations to vilify Russia. I'm going, I just read that chapter going, you sound like them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, if that's what he's saying, then that's true. That Mary Nicholas found in the Daily Worker a review of the original Fatima film in the 1940s, the really good one that was done by Hollywood that was really well done. And I asked her, I said, how did you find this? I said, this is a gem. I mean, they absolutely vilified Fatima and the Blessed Mother, the film, and everything. It's just, I mean, you read it and you read that review and you're just cursing at the page. It's like, look at you guys, what liars you guys were. But if there's a Russian Orthodox priest doing that, that's pretty sad.
It was a layman, not just a layman, but he's got followers. But yeah, New York was the hotbed or the central location for the states?
Yeah, in fact, I quote in this book, and I've been quoting it in all of my books going back 10 or 15 years, a 1948 FBI document that estimated that there were, I think, 60,000 Communist Party members in total in the United States, which is a pretty good number because most historians have no idea how many there were because the party shredded all of its documents all the time. By the way, if there was a list of the different men that Bella and others recruited for seminary, all right, believe me, that list does not exist. They would have shredded it. They would have set it ablaze. And Bella, for the Rapp Coder hearings, as the party lawyer, actually sets documents on fire, all right, which was illegal. Right? I mean, she could have gone to jail for that, destroying evidence, not just tampering it, flat out destroying evidence. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so the FBI report said that of the roughly 60,000 communists in the United States, half of them, literally 50%, lived in New York City in the 5 boroughs. So, there was New York City had 50%, and then the other 50% were spread out all over America. New York City was the hotbed of communism. And the worst university by far was Columbia. That's where people as diverse as Whittaker Chambers, Thomas Merton, and Bella Dodd went in as kind of, innocent, impressionable young people who could have set the world on fire in a positive way, right, to borrow from Catherine of Siena, instead go there and become, rabid communists. And, Merton wasn't that bad. I mean, Merton joined, I think, the Communist Youth League. But in the case of Chambers, he ends up becoming a spy for the GRU. Bella ends up becoming a party recruiter and infiltrating all kinds of organizations. So that's the corrosive effect that New York had, and the Columbia University in particular had at that period of time.
And she was even with NYU. Was it Margaret Schloss?
Yeah, NYU. I think she went there for her law degree, and I don't think NYU has been as bad, but Columbia was just terrible, and that's where Nicholas Murray Butler and brought the Frankfurt School from Frankfurt, Germany, the Institute of Social Research in the 1930s. And Nicholas Murray Butler was this kind of moderate, what you call a kind of Eisenhower Republican type, although this is pre-Eisenhower. And he was completely duped by the progressives on the faculty, Robert Lind, McIver, John Dewey types on the faculty are like, oh, yeah, well, the Institute for Social Research, yeah, Dr. Murray, I think we describe them as perhaps a little left of center, but they're committed to serious sociological research, right? And then they come over to the United States and produce people like Herbert Marcuse, who becomes the guru to the 1960s New Left, whose most famous pupil to this day is Angela Davis, the most well-known, infamous Black female communist in the history of the United States, who is a mentor to Patrisse Cullors, the founder of Black Lives Matter, who describes herself as a Marxist. In fact, in Patrisse's memoir, which I have right here, the foreword is written by Angela Davis. So, and her guru was Herbert Marcuse, who was brought to Columbia by these progressives in the 1930s.
Yeah, Bella, I think then she bring up the key words like democracy. She told everybody that we use these words. That's
a great one. I tell it to my students all the time, and this just haunts me, especially as I hear people today, American progressives, who say all the time, our democracy. And no, we are a republic, but the far left has used democracy like that for 100 years, dating back to the communists. Lenin praised democracy. And Lenin said, when we say democracy, we mean equality. Or like Bella put it, they're talking about economic democracy, right? Equality of economics, equality of income. And today, kind of Marxists who operate in culture and sexuality and critical theory and other things in the United States, they're applying those terms to other forms of equality, whether it be sexual equality, gender equality, some sort of race-based equality. And by the way, of course, we're not against racial equality. Of course, we're not. But the way that the people on the far left use these terms is not exactly what you what you initially think.
It's like Sheen. He brings up in the book. He talks about Stalin and Hitler being two gangsters, Pilate and Herod Christ haters. But when you brought up about that phrase, you remember he talked about if the world said to cover your eyes, and the church comes out and says, no, don't cover your eyes. You need them to see. The world will come out. Look at them. They're abusing the eye. They're eye haters or something like that.
Right. That's exactly right.
So like the world changes these words around, and Bella helped expose these.
Yeah. And Bella said with democracy, she said they use that word all the time, democracy. And they would also And I've been writing about this in books for 20 years. They would tap into the American founders. So one of their books, who wrote it, he shared the editorial page with Barack Obama's mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, the Chicago Star. Howard, I can't remember his last name, but he did the book called Citizen Tom Paine. So they fashioned themselves as modern day revolutionaries. So they would tell people, well, we're just like the American founding fathers. We're revolutionaries just like them. And they had in their schools around the country, the communist schools were called Lincoln schools, Abraham Lincoln schools. In fact, the group of American communists that went to fight for the communists in the Spanish Civil War in 1936 to 1938 called themselves the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Not the Karl Marx Brigade. That would have been a little too transparent. Not the Leon Trotsky Brigade, right? But the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. And in New York, they had the Jefferson Schools. They started the Jefferson Schools. They changed the name of Workers' School to the Jefferson Schools. So these kind of things, this is how they operated with their front groups. I get this big, thick report right over here in 1943, Appendix 9, that Congress put out on subversive groups in the United States in the 1930s, 1940s. The most common name for them, the most common word used in the title, aside from democratic or democracy, is progressive. They would use words like American League Against War and Fascism, the Progressive Citizens Alliance, the whatever for democracy, for whatever democracy. They were insidious. They lied. They deceived. And Bella Dodd was part of that. She was a master of it.
You guys bring up I hate talking about the following two words, Vatican II, but it's brought up in the book, and I did not know about the footnote that you guys bring up.
Oh yeah, that's really sad. Yeah, when I first learned about it, in fact, I think in The Devil and Karl Marx, I wrote about it a little more positively. I was excited to learn initially that Vatican II had these condemnations of communism, but Steve, they ended up turning them into like footnotes. It was almost a complete silence. That Vatican II should have issued a strong denunciation of communism, as the church had been doing at that point since Pius IX published Qui Pluribus in November 1846.
Right.
December 1846, 2 years before the Communist Manifesto was even published. But instead, they said virtually nothing about communism out of Vatican II, partly to assuage or not anger, perhaps, the communist bloc countries, the Kremlin, whoever. But we speculate that if you're looking for examples of how, if there was a Marxist influence in the church, if they did succeed in penetrating the priesthood in the 1930s, well, what would have been manifestations of that? Well, one of them might have been a sort of soft on communism line at Vatican II. It's possible. I mean, do we know that for sure? No. Maybe more concretely, we point to ideas like liberation theology. And, I mean, that would clearly seem an influence right there. So, those are some of the ways that if there was an infiltration, it might have manifested itself in the church.
You don't see that with the Jesuit magazine America at all, right?
No, you don't, especially when they publish in June 2019 or July 2019 articles with titles like The Catholic Case for Communism. Yeah, look it up. People are typing it in right now. You'll see a picture of Evo Morales, the communist president of Bolivia, handing Pope Francis, a grinning Pope Francis, a communist crucifix. And that article is called The Catholic Case for Communism, written by Dean Detloff, who's Canadian. And according to some sources on the internet, they say he's a member of the Canadian Communist Party. But even if he is or isn't a member of the party, he believes that there's a Catholic case for communism. And that a Catholic publication would have published that in the 1950s, would have been probably excommunicated under Pope Pius XII's papal decree of 1948, was it? I quoted in the book. But to see that kind of stuff now in magazines like the Jesuit America magazine about an ideology that the church described as a satanic scourge, it's really disappointing. And I think it's reflective of a complete failure in the church, and especially our universities, and especially our Catholic universities, to teach the truths about communism.
What was making Bella? Now, she didn't just run into Sheen. What made her start thinking about getting out of the party? There's, I think, one of the parts in there was, it's almost like you can't get out of it. It's kind of like a gang.
Yeah, it took her a while to extricate herself. She really joined finally after working for the party throughout most of the 1930s at Hunter College as a professor. She finally joined the party in the middle of World War II, I think 1943, same year that Barack Obama's mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, joined it, which would mean that they both joined after the Hitler-Stalin Pact, which, I mean, the Hitler-Stalin Pact was so insidious that it pushed a lot of American Jewish communists out of the party, and rightfully so. But people like Bella and Obama's mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, joined the party even after that. It still joined it. But she just started to see slowly by slowly the truth, how it was treated like a religion, how they handled dissenters. If you had any questions about the party or whatever, you were an absolute, you were treated like a heretic, an apostate. They were brutal to anybody who left the party. She, like Whittaker Chambers and others, saw people in the party that they knew vanish, if not get killed. I talk about the case of Juliet Points, which is an extraordinary story. Someone should do a book on her. And she was actually killed by communists for breaking away from the party. So they just slowly came to realize what absolute thugs they were dealing with, and how truly diabolical the ideology was. It takes a lot of people more time to figure that out than others. And let me back up a little bit by saying Bella was hoodwinked into believing that no one in the world was fighting fascism better than the communists, which is nonsense. I mean, sure, they were against fascism, but so what? You don't have to become a communist to oppose fascism. How did 150 million Americans fight fascism and Nazism without becoming Marxist-Leninists? I mean, come on, man. All right, but a lot of them got sucked into it, and then just kind of went deeper in. I mean, she talked about it as like almost a kind of, satanic seduction, where she walked hand in hand with the devil.
So yeah, that's, again, guys, the book Devil and Karl Marx leads up to what is communism. And again, type in Dr. Kengor's name anywhere in YouTube. You should tell somebody, say, hey, that's communist. Have you read Kengor? Have you watched his lectures? You might not know, you might use the word, but you might not know what it is. You might get that a lot, right? Or you might see that a lot.
No, that's right. No, that's absolutely true.
Because you got the, again, Frankfurt School, Fabian, you got Marxist, all in the culture, society, all different flavors. Kind of like Baskin Robbins 31 flavors anymore.
Yeah, they started applying Marxism to culture. And I did, people can look this up. I'm the editor of the American Spectator, and I have a number of articles on cultural Marxism and its conspirators, a part 1, a part 2. People should look that up to understand that term, what it really means, how those particular Marxists did apply their craft, their ideology to culture. And it's important for people to understand what's conspiracy, what's not conspiracy. It's very troubling, and it's to the point where it is so saturated so many different parts of the culture that oftentimes people are engaging in these ideas and they don't even know about it.
Like the approved conspiracy versus unapproved conspiracy, because the
right.
enemy's okay with their Clinton a couple of weeks ago. Oh, that's going to happen with the election. That's an approved conspiracy.
Right. Well, and like Bella Dodd and the others said, I mean, with communism, it really was a conspiracy. I mean, it was headquartered out of Moscow with the Communist International. They had one party in every country in the world, all directed by Moscow, with liaisons, to this group and that group, and working underhand, subversively, not telling people what they were doing. lying under oath to Congress and other legislative bodies. Frank Marshall Davis called it the church. That was his name for the underground communist movement in Hawaii that he went to after he left Chicago, which is where he would eventually meet a young Barack Obama in the 1970s. So they understood it was a conspiracy. This actually was a very real conspiracy.
So you got to know, as we mentioned before, and you got to know your enemy. If you know how you are and know your enemy, you have a chance of winning. If you don't know either, you have no chance. And when we preach about doing the Holy Face devotion, okay, it's a good devotion. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. But why should you even practice it? Stuff like this. His many books on communism gives you the why. It shows the ugliness and the, as he brought up, satanic version of it. That's the why, to get you on your knees to start doing that devotion over there.
Amen. Yeah. No, and in fact, Bella Dodd and Fulton Sheen and others said, and Bella said this under oath to the counselor from one of the committees, Robert Kunzig, and as well as also to a couple senators. She said, honestly, the only way that I really pulled out of it was to get on my knees and go back to my faith, go back to my church. So for a lot of them, they needed the spiritual strength of the church and the faith to pull away from it.
Yeah, there's a part when you brought up, she goes to Christmas Mass, and she's thinking, these are one of the masses that I've been missing my whole life. Yeah.
She rode around all over New York late at night on buses, subway, walking around. She was very, very lonely. I think she was depressed for sure, maybe possibly close to thinking of ending her own life. And I should add, the woman who really brought her in at Hunter College, even before she went to Columbia College, was a professor named Sarah Parks. And when people read that chapter in the beginning, they'll be angry. They'll be angry at Sarah Parks, and they'll say, this is the kind of awful brainwashing that professors have done to our kids for 100 years. And Sarah Parks, after Bella graduated, went off to Columbia, came back and went to look her up, found out, Steve, that she had killed herself. She had taken her own life. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, this ideology that our church described as devilish, out of the pit of hell, took people to despair. And the only way they were able to climb back out of it was through the faith. And in Bella's case, the help of someone like Fulton Sheen.
Yeah, who gave her a rosary. She's holding the rosary in her hand, keeping it near her and all that. Something as simple as giving a sacramental. Look at that.
Right. She said she clung to it all the way home after that first meeting. Just clung to that rosary. Mm-hmm.
I get people every so often. I had a friend of mine contact me the other day. Should I give a rosary or a medal to this person? I don't know what they'll do with it. Here's a perfect example. Sheen gave her a rosary.
Yeah.
And she became a huge asset for truth.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Think about that.
Again, there's the devil and Bella Dodd. You get it. I'll have it underneath in the show notes and link below. Paul, thank you for your time as always. I jokingly said beforehand, going, we could do this for about 5 hours because I love the content that he has. I love the info that he brings out, and I can listen to him all day long. You again, go to YouTube, check out the lectures to learn what communism is. Get the book so you have an idea of what we're fighting against. Again, so that when you get to the devotion, you actually know why you're fighting.
Very good. Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Thank you as always. Take care.
All right. Take care. God bless.